This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show. There's a reason certain people become the person everyone calls when the stakes are high. My guest today is the Emily Blunt of advisor succession and exit planning. She's done over 100 transactions. Victoria Hicks is the CEO of Melo. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I've been so excited about coming and talking to you today.
It's a pleasure to have you in. You brought the sunshine from the north.
I did. Yeah, as you know, it's always beautiful in the north.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you've gone through a journey of being a financial planner, firm owner yourself, to setting up Melo and advising advisors or planners, business owners about their exit. Talk to me through your transition, the journey that you went through, and the creation of Melo.
So I'm a financial advisor at heart, and it's what I've always done. So I started working in finance at 18, became a financial advisor at 23, progressed to being one of the owners and directors of a chartered firm over in York. Beautiful chartered financial planning business. We were part of a group of firms across Yorkshire. And then in 2018, someone came along and said, could we buy you? And at that point, as a business, we were around 550 mil assets under management, 22 advisors, and we were starting to creak. And it was like, okay, for us to kind of go that next level, do we bring on some investment? Do we spend a lot of money to kind of gear up and sort out our foundations? Or do we join somebody that's already doing it? They've got all the stuff. And actually, 2 + 2 = more than 4. So we went forward, great gusto. We were going to become the sort of northern hub of this acquirer. And the reality of life was completely different to everything we discussed.
Tell me more.
It was heartbreaking. I watched the soul get ripped out of the business, you know. We were young, we were dynamic, we were growing. We really thought we were going to have influence. Maybe we were naive, but at that time, you know, there wasn't that many acquirers around. It's a very different landscape to what it is today. And we thought we were making the right decision. And it took me all of about 4 weeks post-completion to go, I can't survive in this environment. But when you're under a share purchase agreement, you're time barred. Yeah. So it's like you're working for us or you're not working as a financial planner. You can't compete with us. And I was like, I remember saying to my husband that Christmas, like, I don't know what to do because I am a financial advisor. It's all I've ever been. I love it. And I feel like I've got to work with these guys. And my husband just said, you don't. Like, you've got freedom. You can still work in the profession. There's got to be something else you can do. So I started to research, like, why had our sale gone so wrong? Why were so many sales going so wrong? And I kind of tracked it back to the way that the broker community operates. You know, we had a broker. We didn't know how many firms they were introducing us to. We didn't know under what terms. And actually, my view was, well, if we'd approached the whole process differently and we'd really understood what was ahead of us, we'd have probably made different decisions. So I started as a sell-side broker back in April 2019, and I'm still here today. I thought I would have gone back into financial advice.
So that was the plan? Was that supposed to be like a stopgap before you could go back to financial advice?
I don't know that I saw it as a stopgap, but I didn't know if I'd be any good at it.
Right.
And I knew I was a really good financial advisor. So I definitely, it was like 50-50. It was like, yes, I could go on, I could be a financial advisor again. I could definitely see that happening. And then maybe a year or so into doing what I was doing, I just turned a corner with it. And I was like, I kind of get this now. And I know a lot of people and I enjoy it. And I never thought I would have enjoyed a career as much as I enjoyed financial planning. But actually, I feel more involved in the profession now than I ever have.
Fascinating. So let's talk about Melo.
Yes.
Tell me about this idea, how this journey translated into not just helping firms exit, but this whole idea about redefining what it means to build, to grow, and ultimately exit a financial planning firm. Tell us about that.
Well, my first 5 years was just on the exit side.
Right.
We had a business called the Exit Partnership, which we rebranded to Melo. And it was part of my frustration of getting our hands on businesses when really it was too late to improve them. And so we were selling them as best as we could. But I was seeing so many opportunities within the firms that we were selling, thinking, oh, if you'd have just tackled your succession plan 2-3 years in advance, you'd have been able to make huge improvements, not just to the value, but to the attractiveness and to the number of potential suitors that you might have. So we decided that we would merge with a growth consultancy so that we could then essentially support businesses wherever they are on their journey. But we're always doing it with the end in mind. And that's not because a financial planning firm has to sell at a certain time. It's because if you know where you're going, you're much more likely to get there. So if we understand from a business owner, this is where you are today, this is where you want to be, we can help them on that journey to achieve what they're looking to achieve. Does that then mean that they need to sell and exit? No, it doesn't. But does it mean that they have optionality? Yes, it does. And the smart business owners recognize that creating a plan is creating optionality.
So at what point do you think it's ideal, for a firm to start thinking about engaging with you, for instance?
With us, maybe when they're a little bit more established.
Right.
So there are some amazing people out there that are great in like that startup space and helping business owners to get going. We're there to help business owners to grow with a capital G or work towards an event. So we tend to work with owners that are, maybe 100, 200 mil assets under advice. They've got ambition to grow. They're perhaps light in terms of peer support that they have. And actually what they want from us are people that have been there, done it, and worn the t-shirt. And when I look around my team in Melo, I'm like, wow, they're all better than me. And that's the best place to be. And, across the team, we've exited businesses with sort of 2 billion assets under advice. I've got the incredible Gaynor Rigby working with me.
She's super, yeah.
Oh, she's like the other half of like a semicircle. It just works, I'm like ideas a second. She's like clarity and getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And what she, the sort of skill set that my guys bring, they've run networks, they've run family-owned businesses, they've grown firms 10 times. We've made the mistakes. So like, come on board with us. Let us help you with your journey so you don't make the same mistakes as us that we have. But also, we're on the same journey because as Melo, we want to grow, and we want to scale up and we want to do amazing things. So we're walking the walk and talking the talk and having a jolly good time.
Yeah, I love that. So when you go into firms, let's say, typically a 200 million AUM firm, for instance, bring you guys in. What do you tend to see as the impediment to growth? What stops firms from growing? What are these things that slow them down?
Often owner mindset is a big one.
Tell me more.
There's a lot of people out there talking about getting your business ready or improving your operation or building an operating model, right? And all of that is really, really important. Like one of the things we're really trying to instill are proper business principles because a lot of the advice community, the owners still see themselves as financial advisors first and business owners second, right? And you get to a point in your growth where you've got to change that. But actually, you've got to decide if you want to. And that's why I say, we've got to talk about mindset with business owners before we go through any program of change, whether that's about to grow the business or looking to exit the business. And they've got to understand, well, what are their own capabilities? What do they, what gets them in the way from unlocking the ambition? Are they the ones that are in the way of the growth within their organization? And how do they start to bring in a better team around them and bring the skill sets in that they need? So a lot of mindset work that we do. But in terms of in the business, often the problems are, as I said, owners wearing too many hats. So not being able to kind of prioritize growth and strategy. Dare I say a lack of strategy? Quite a few of the firms that we talk to. Very poor financial reporting. And I think to really understand, what you want to get from your management data, that really helps you to make great decisions that align with where you're going in terms of your endpoint. And when businesses are looking at their financials, they're usually looking backwards. And when you're looking backwards, you can't spot the icebergs ahead. So one of the things we do is we work on a financial management pack with them. And we like it to be quite down and dirty. It doesn't need to be anything that's overcomplicated, anything that's just spreadsheet for spreadsheet's sake. But actually, let's understand not just the business that has come in, but how did that originate? What therefore are our conversion rates? How many targets do we need to talk to? And get some proper good MI that starts, that looks forward rather than looks backwards.
I like this, and I want to double click into two things, right, that you've said. One is this owner mindset thing, and the other is about almost like professionalizing the operation of the firm, the financial reporting, the forecasting, all of that stuff. So we'll come back to that. But this mindset thing, what is it? I want to double click in. What is it about the mindset of the advisor that makes it difficult to transition to more of a leader rather than still wearing the advisor hat? What is it?
I think it's the relationship that you have with your clients.
Yeah, right.
I think that's the oddity about our profession. It's why we all love it. It's why we all do it. But when you become so entrenched with essentially what you're selling, how do you helicopter out from that? And actually, do you want to? Because in some scenarios, there are businesses that have a huge amount of appetite to grow, and the owner has recognized, I don't want to be the CEO. I want to keep looking after clients. I want a seat at the table, absolutely. I want to know what's going on, but there are better people than me to run the operation. That doesn't float my boat. That doesn't give me energy. I want to be in front of clients changing lives. And in a way, I see us as a caring profession. Yes, we want to build profitable firms. And yes, we want to, grow fabulous businesses and earn the money that we deserve to earn. But fundamentally, at the heart of what we're doing, we're looking after people's futures. And that is a huge, huge commitment. And when you take that seriously, it's so challenging to pull yourself away from that aspect and move into talking about financial modeling. Or the operating model.
And there are, do you see this like inflection points in firms? I tend to see, that the firms will, an advisor will start out and then they will work and get to say 300,000 pounds of revenue and maybe one paraplanner and support staff and they're kind of comfortable.
Yeah.
And they kind of just, some guys, or girls get stuck there, but some will break through and will get to, say, between 600 to 750, and they kind of just stay there. So you get this inflection point that as an advisor, you almost have to make that conscious mindset shift to say, now I'm going to elevate to the next stage, more of an operator. I'm going to bring in an operator. And I've had so many people bring in, a COO or operations manager, but actually they don't let go of the reins. No. So they don't let the operations manager or practice manager do their thing. It sounds easy, but it is a difficult shift for people to make.
Because growth's not a straight line.
Yeah.
I call it the growth wobble. Nothing's linear, and you've got to go forward and you've got to come backwards and you've got to go forward. And I think those inflection points you talk about, like, and why do firms congregate around those inflection points? I think it's because something big has to change to move on up. And have you ever read a book called 10x is easier than 2x, or heard about it?
I have. I didn't finish it, is what I was saying. Yeah, so
I don't know Dan Sullivan.
No,
so
Dan Sullivan.
I won't tell him.
Yeah.
But that concept, it's more a concept rather than having to sort of read and study the book and whether you like the book or you don't. It's that concept that actually it's easier to really grow than just keep steady growing. Because actually to really grow, something's got to change.
Yeah.
And you can't get from 300,000 to 1 million doing what you're doing. Because if you were doing that, you'd be at 1 million. Right?
Yeah,
so you've got to make really hard decisions at those key inflection points of growth. Those decisions might upset people. Those decisions are definitely going to cost you money.
Yeah.
You've got to bring in new tech. You've got to recruit in more people, and they're expensive people. And that's this growth wobble.
Yeah.
And you've kind of got to be comfortable, which goes back to the mindset, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be comfortable that it's not just going to be plain sailing, and that there's going to have to be some really hard decisions. The hardest decisions, I think, that come with growth. And I split growth into two sort of areas, right? I have growth with a normal G, which is every business should be growing. You cannot stay still in business. You've got to at least, oil the wheels, keep things moving. So that's growth with a small G. And then you've got growth with a capital G, right? Which is we're really, really going to go for it. And the hardest decisions you may have to make when it comes to growth with a capital G are around people. Because sometimes the people who've got you to where you are actually not the people that are going to get you to where you want to be. And I'm not saying, we should be ruthless or anything like that. We should absolutely respect the people that have been with us. But you've got to be fair to the business, and you've got to be fair to those people. If you're making a conscious decision as a business owner, we are going to 10x this business. We're really going to go for it. We're going to ramp up our lead generation. We're going to look at doing some acquisitions to grow the business. That may be a fundamental shift in your business culture. And it doesn't mean then that you're moving into having a bad business culture. It just means your business culture moving forward is fast-paced, high growth, like we're going for it. And that might not suit certain people. So that's, I think, they're the sorts of challenges that mean that people get to those inflection points and just go, no, do you know what? Maybe let's just stick with where we are. We're fine. We're having our holidays. We're having a lovely life. And I kind of think, well, who can blame them? But at the same time, I also think, but guys, there is so much opportunity out there. And some of the best firms I see are the lovely small wee ones. And I'm like, oh, if you could offer your service to 1,000 clients rather than 100, think of how much benefit that would bring to 10 times more people.
It's interesting that some of the things you're talking about relating to growing the business are often also the things that you need to do to get the most value out of the business if your intention were to exit the business.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So what would you say to firms who might say, well, we're kind of content, the market will give us, 6 to 8% a year of growth. And then, maybe with a little bit of our own effort, normal client referral, maybe you layer on 5% on top. So we're doing 10 to 12% of growth. And we just compound, right?
Yeah.
And maybe at some point we will exit the firm. Talk to me about how people leave money on the table by not approaching the business with a growth mindset because they're thinking of an exit, sort of 3-5 years down the line.
I always remember someone saying to me the line, Usain Bolt is still sprinting after the finish line. Huh. And I say that to my sellers because I'm like, what an acquirer wants is they want a growing asset, right? They want to see something that has been well looked after, is growing, and actually can continue to grow. So demonstrating that shows that somebody can buy an appreciating asset rather than a depreciating asset. But when a business owner says to me, Vic, I'm a few years out, I'm really happy with where we are, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, I actually say, right, marvelous. Because you have come to terms with what you want to do. And that's ultimately what it's about. And I think with all of the noise on social media, right, there's everybody, me, my clan, everyone else, right, who's like, grab the opportunity that's out there. We could grow amazing businesses. You can see how people might get a bit caught up in that. Oh gosh, well, should this be me as well? Should I be growing more? If it's not right for you, for your family, for where you want to be, for what you want to do with the rest of your life, don't feel pressure to grow with a capital G. What we can do, though, is we can still work with you to tighten up the operations, to really make things shiny, to make sure your data's all in hand so that when you do get to the point of exit, you can maximize the value within what you've built. You can go to market with, full 5-year audit history, compliance and governance and people and clients and opportunity, and showcase it all. And then you can achieve fair value for the business that you've created. But it's the business you want to create. We've got to enjoy the journey. And not everyone's crazy like us, Abraham.
Yeah. So you've done over 100 transactions.
In total, over the last 7 years, I have been involved in over 100. I would say around 80% of those are external sales.
Right.
So trade sales, buyer to seller. And the rest are internal.
So it's your fault. You sold all the firms in the country.
I like when I talk about exit, I think sometimes people think exit is an external sale, but exit is just a route out. And it's like, what is your route out? And I love an internal exit if it's done well, where somebody's got the management team as the owner, they've already let go. They're already not really needed. The management team are running the firm. They've got loads of time ahead of them. They've got ambition to grow it. Those, if you can get it right in terms of the structure, whether that's via a management buyout or an employee ownership trust, that can be just the most beautiful exit. But unfortunately, a lot can't do that because they haven't taken the time to get to that point. And in business, like, time is your friend or your enemy. So if you want to build a business that can, last beyond you, that's what I want to do at Melo. by the way. I want Melo to last beyond me. I want to sell it to the team internally, or sell my share to the team internally. That takes years and years and years of preparation. That's recruiting and training and retaining, and probably looking at some form of incentivization along the way, maybe growth shares or an EMI scheme. You've got to do leadership training to make sure the guys you're handing over to aren't just good advisors, but they understand they're taking on a business, they're taking on risk, they're taking on responsibility. So I would absolutely love to encourage more businesses to do internal sales. But for the majority, at the moment, I think we can work this, but at the moment, the majority have to sell if they're at the point of.
So you reckon it's 80-20? I think it's probably more than that. Oh, it might be.
In
Maybe
terms
just
of what I've dealt with.
What you've done. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the external sales.
Yeah.
First, talk to me about what are the kind of buyers out there, and what are they looking for when they want to buy firms?
I always try to make things as simple as possible. And what a buyer's looking at, you can distill down to two things.
Right.
They're looking at opportunity and risk. That's it. And in the past, 2018, 2019, 2020, it was crazy. 70% of the money flooded the space.
Right.
The majority of the acquirers that came in, they didn't even have a business. They were buy and build. They were an expensive board and a pocket full of cash that needed to be deployed, right? So there was this just crazy time of kind of inflated valuations and stuff like that. And now things have just started to simmer down a little bit and started to slow down somewhat. So but in terms of the different acquirers that are out there, still, I would say the majority of sales are going to private equity-backed consolidators, national firms. There is more and more that are now happening within the sort of owner-manager space, like the smaller acquisitions are taking place there. But the challenge we've got in financial planning is it's really hard to borrow to grow.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot, I think, have had to, maybe sell to private equity or sell and roll some shares into the acquiring firm so they can have the other bite of the cherry, or become part of something where they have access as well to a funding line so that they can grow. Because we do make it difficult to borrow. We've got obviously capital adequacy concerns. So first of all, you need a company stack to do so. And a lot of the sort of banks and the traditional lenders, they don't really understand goodwill lending against recurring income. There are some banks out there that do, but not so much. But I think now we're starting to see more appetite to empower privately owned firms. So we're starting to see more businesses like, your Marlboros of the world. They're taking minority equity in businesses. This is something that's really popular over in the US. Is actually don't try to create one great big business, but empower individual brilliant businesses to grow and trust them to grow. So I think we're really starting to see the emergence more of the, we'll take a minority equity stake and we'll give you access to capital because we love your business and we'll help you to grow. We, a few weeks ago, launched a M&A platform called Project Exit. The main purpose of Project Exit is to stimulate acquisition opportunities for privately owned businesses. They miss out so often. And so we wanted to create a space where ambitious firms could build their profiles and sellers could be matched with them. So we're trying to, as best as we can, which we recognize that there's a place for all of them. You've got to have your private equity backed consolidators. They actually provided exit. In the first place, we were going to have a huge issue. We were going to have loads and loads of advisors coming up to their mid-60s and no way to get out. So private equity, it created a buyout for people. It helped people to create a lot of value. And I do believe that I'm pro-investment. I think the profession needs investment. And I hope that what we start to see from the private equity, the larger consolidators that have a national footprint is I hope we start to see them making a meaningful difference to the advice gap, because you can do so now through technology and things like that. But at the same time, we're going to see more buy and sell in the privately owned space, I think, and we're trying to encourage that.
So let me double click into that. Project Exit. The idea is that financial planning firms will put their own profile out on somewhere on the website, or right, and they will, kind of position themselves as either a potential buyer of other firms or a potential seller to other firms. You will still have private equity in there. I assume you would have minority stake, firms who want to take minority stakes in firms there. Is that the thinking, or have I got this completely wrong?
No, you're right. So
I'm right. Often I am.
We're done. Essentially, if you look at kind of what are the options for people that are looking to sell?
Yeah.
All too often, they're selling to people they know, someone that they've been introduced to, somebody that a broker's put their way. They're not checking out the market and working out what really is the right option for me. And it's why, Melo is sell side. There are very few sell side brokers in the market, but they're great, right? Because they can sit in a position of true independence with access to all of the acquirers out there, no bias at all. And they can genuinely make that right fit. But it's very labor intensive and it's quite expensive. So like financial planners are looking and going, well, we need propositions for everybody. That's what we did at Melo. We said, we've got this beautiful sell side proposition where we hold their hands and, we are there from the conception of the thought of exit all the way through to completion. And it's hundreds of hours work. But as much as we can take off the sellers, we try to do. But we're limited in terms of how many firms we can work with and how many firms can afford that type of service. And then when I look at what then happens to those businesses and the awful routes that they have available to them, I was like, we've got to come up with something here, guys, that can fix this problem, that can give sellers access in an unbiased way to lots of different acquirers, where they feel in control and where they're only going to market when they're ready. And as ridiculous as that sounds, because you would think, well, hang on a second, does everybody go to market when they're ready? The way a lot of the brokers operate is, they'll just land in inboxes. We've got a buyer in your area. Are you interested in chatting? You've had a crappy week. You respond to that email, and before you know it, you're down some exit process and you're not particularly well prepared for it. So through Project Exit, people who are, looking at selling in the future, at the moment, we've got about 80 buyers on there.
Right.
We're hoping to get it up to 300. We've got 300 across the group in Melo and
buyers
in Melo and Project Exit.
Wow.
Oh, from the wee ones to the big ones to the partial ones. Yeah, we've got them all in there. So sellers can come on, and the first thing that they can do, and it's a totally safe system as well. Don't ask me for the Bicer bobbity-bobs, because that's not where I get my energy from, far. But we've gone for some super duper like high grade security like level stuff. And a seller can go on, they can put in a few bits of information, they can get a valuation. Step one, it's free. Before you go to market, is your business in the ballpark of value that you're looking for? And if you're not quite there, it's not then some broker saying, oh, go on, just have a chat with people. What harm can it do? It's actually your empowerment to go, I'm not where I need to be yet, but now I know where I am. I'm going to come back to this in a year or 2 years, whatever. But for those people that, receive the valuation and they're comfortable, they can then go from there and build their seller profile. They can put in lots of information about their business, all anonymized. So we're super hot on confidentiality. And essentially, they can create their own business profile. They give themselves a project name. Like you would be Project Flamingo. Of course.
Of course.
Right? So they give themselves a project name. They build their profile, and then they set their profile live. And they've put their preferences on there. So then the buyers that are on the system, they can see the profiles. They can see, lots of great information about the business. They can see the seller's preferences. And a bit like Tinder, you've not heard of Tinder, have you? A bit like Tinder, like there's a bit of swiping. So the buyer goes, I like your profile. I think I can meet your preferences. Can I know who you are, please? And then the seller goes, has a look at their profile and goes, well, either yes or no, And if they want to meet with the buyer, then everybody's just better positioned, right? The seller kind of has a ballpark of what their business is worth. The buyer's seen enough information on the seller. The seller's seen enough information on the buyer. They're not wasting their time going into that meeting together. And Team Melo are behind the scenes, just nurturing the process and guiding things through and making sure everyone's looked after.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
So I like the idea of trying to productize something that is maybe a little bit of a myth or opaque. As you said, the private equity-backed firm came in. They kind of established this market for financial planning firms. Okay, it is not an efficient market and transparent market, especially from a buyer's point of view. From a seller's point of view. You're only going to do this once as a seller. But, there are really now good consultancy M&A firms out there who know how to do this, who know how to prep firm, who, Melo, others in the marketplace. And you want to turn that? This is such a, personal thing for people, really deeply. And it may be the biggest transaction in their lives that they've ever done. Almost certainly worth more than their homes, maybe more than their pension, most likely the biggest financial transactions they would ever done. And you want to productize it
We want to help more. We want to help more. So it's not a DIY service.
Right. Okay.
Because people really need the support at every part of the journey. So, when as soon as they go onto the system, they're allocated a person, and then that person will talk to them. How'd you get on with your valuation? Where are you? Is it where you want to be? Have you got any questions about it? Right. Let's go from there to sort of building your profile. Do you want any help? How are you building it? So it's still creating, it's just recognizing the scale of stuff. And it's recognizing that there are so many transactions that are going to take place. I want people to have the right level of support, whichever route that they're going. And we now have the two propositions to still be able to offer that support.
So talk to me about this minority stake model that you alluded to. So we've started seeing the likes of Soderbergh in this space, Marlboro. Talk to me a little bit about that. I have some thoughts and questions. What are we seeing in that space?
So I'm not saying it's without its challenges. I've seen some contracts where people, are selling minority equity and they may as well be selling the whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
That's how some of these contracts look. And that's not a scenario you want to be in. In those sorts of scenarios, we're really questioning the people that we're working with. And it's like, look, are you sure that this is the way that you want to go? Because if you've got ambition to grow, like let's look at some restructuring. Let's look at some debt funding.
Yeah.
There's some really good debt funders as well that if you build a relationship with them and they understand financial planning, can sort of help you with that journey. So there's always alternatives. But what people are looking for, I think, when they're looking for that minority or they're looking to sell minority equity, is they're usually looking to get a little bit of risk off the table. Mm-hmm. Maybe this business is worth 5 million quid. Maybe they can pocket 1 million today, right? And just give themselves and their families a little bit of a golden thank you for all of the hard work that they've done. They're usually also looking, though, for peer level and board support that can take them from where they are to where they know they have the potential to be. So they're like, we've got a great setup here. We've got a great reputation. We know that we can do something more. But actually, it's not just about us accessing the money to do it. We would also feel more comfortable to have access to those sorts of people, brains, that experience, and to be able to tap into that experience. So I think a lot of people do it for that reason. And they really want to grow. So, they don't want to continue to layer debt on debt. And perhaps through this model, they can also access money to unlock that passion.
Yeah. So I like a lot of that. You know, this idea of minority stake to the extent that it's structured properly, where you're not giving essentially, as you said, rights, too much right to buy the rest of the, business at a more or less predetermined, valuation. But again, let's leave that aside. Trust the management or the financial planners to grow the firm. The bit I get stuck on, right, is that capital has now become I want to think about it as a means of distribution, so if the player who is buying the minority stake is also a platform provider or MPS provider or some other provider, how do you circle that? Because I think about this and I think, okay, I like a lot of the sound of this, but you also see the inevitable, shall we say, conflicts that comes into the equation. How do you think about that? How should firms think about that?
So many conflicts in finance, which is the place where there shouldn't be any, but there are. It's a challenging one because when I started in M&A 7 years ago, having been acquired by a consolidator, my dislike of consolidation, of private equity, of vertical integration, you could have tattooed it on me. and I was coming into M&A for that to not happen to anybody else, to be this champion of the smaller firms, right? And then I kind of got to understand it a little bit more. And there are good and there are bad. And my view on, vertical integration or manufacturing is that it's just got to be right. If you've been banging a drum that, you're a believer in evidence-based investing, or, you go down the passive model portfolio route, and that's like it's a core piece of your business and it's what your clients buy into. Like, you've got to maintain that. That is the essence of what you're all about. If an acquirer or, say, a minority player that was going to tick all those other boxes had a solution that actually was going to create the same or a better client outcome, then I don't have any issue in that personally. Do I think clients should be charged for that? No, I don't. But actually, as a financial advisor or a financial planner as I was, my role was always to make sure that the investment solution that I was offering as part of the overall plan was to make sure that remained suitable, right? And to check that out and to make sure that there wasn't any alternatives. And I always say to people who are selling, it's like, meet the buyer. One, do you like each other, right? First date, 30 minutes, doesn't need to be long. Right? Two, let's dig into them. They're going to dig into you, but let's dig into them, right? Let's get to understand if they've got an investment proposition, even if they're independent, they're going to have an internal target as to how much they want to get into that investment proposition, right? Of course. So check it out, run your comparisons, see if it makes sense, see if it produces better outcomes. And if it doesn't, then my view is you should walk away. But I don't think all vertical integrate, having now been around so many businesses and actually watched a lot of improvements, I don't think vertical integration is always bad. I just think it is often not disclosed clearly. And yeah, if it's done for financial motivation from the seller rather than it being best for the client, that's just a no-no to me.
You also talk about debt funding. It's a little bit of a shame. We've now got this, established kind of, business recurring income. Private equity want it because, of course, they believe that it's a great opportunity. Capital's coming in on that side of things. But if I was a owner of a financial planning firm and I want to let's say borrow money to grow, or if indeed borrow money for exit planning for the next generation, that's challenging. Yeah. Now we're starting to see some, the likes of ThinkCards are in this space. Is this really a problem with the business model, or is the fundamental problem the one you alluded to earlier on about, data, having your, proper business forecast, proper audited account, even if you don't have to statutorily, management account, this like rigor that you need to have in your business to grow and succeed. Is that the problem, or is it just that, the traditional lenders just don't understand our markets and therefore...
That one. They don't even get as far as looking. Okay. Initially they're looking at a financial model.
Right.
As a starting point as well, for a lot of the banks in the building societies, actually the amount they lend is too much.
It's too much.
As in,
too little.
As too much.
Right. Interesting.
Like some of the banks, it's like they're only interested, even if you could, package up a really nice financial model, get them comfortable, they might start lending at 2 million. Or 3 million. Right, yeah. Like we need to stimulate more of this sort of mezzanine finance, this lower level, I'd love to see some form of fund supporting our profession. I've been speaking, been something I've had on my mind for a little while. I've been speaking to a few people, for the amount of money that's available, if you think about some of the providers that have got no interest in getting into financial planning, right? Like your large, some of your pension providers and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, some of these businesses couldn't there be a fund or something?
Part of the problem is the regulation, though, there is...
With the CAPAD?
Yeah, well, CAPAD, actually, you surfaced that. I wasn't thinking about that. But, if you're a product provider that supplies product to financial advisors, also lending them money is tricky. You have to do it some sort of arm's length, if you see what I mean.
I think there's going to be more creative solutions coming to market, though, in terms of some of the conversations that I'm hearing taking place and stuff. And I'm just really conscious. I don't want to say any names. But people are trying to find and work out ways to do this. Because within our profession, I think that there's also a real love of it, by the people that are in it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I really do think that a lot of people want to support a very buoyant, privately owned part of this profession.
Yes.
And we need to have those two parts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yes, some people, they have sold to the consolidators. They're very, very large now, and they're going to continue to grow just by compounding some of them, right? But actually, there is a decent number of quality privately owned businesses, and they just need, a little bit of support at that peer level, access to that capital that's not at crazy rates.
Yeah.
Recognition that the part of the challenge as well is, when you go for debt funding, you're expected to essentially have put together these models and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it requires an FD.
Yeah. It requires proper. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, but you're right. Like it requires that. So it's like, how do we? And this is why there are a lot of people now saying we've got to find a way to give those firms the tools that they need to grow, because they do amazing planning. We've got to get that out to more people.
I might have a thought leadership paper on this somewhere that's not published, but let's not get into that. No, Victoria.
Let me quote it.
No, it's been really insightful talking to you. I've enjoyed this conversation. Paint me a picture of Melo in 5 years' time. Where are you taking this thing? What do you see? This beautiful business that you're building evolve to.
So we want to, as I said, be able to work with a lot more people. We have a mantra, which is educate, guide, support. The support is what we do, where we hold hands and we roll up our sleeves and we get stuck into those businesses. Educate is the sort of thing that I'm doing with you today, or it's when I sit on stages. It's where I can reach a mass audience to try to just leave them with a little something that maybe they didn't know before that maybe helps. But there's this whole guide space in the middle, right, where firms need access to something. And that's where I believe we have, the tools, the templates, the experience. And if we can harness what we have and what we know, and we can incorporate that with technology, that's when I've really nailed the educate, guide, and support. And I'm helping a lot more people build better businesses. And then there's other countries, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have you back in a few years' time to tell us how that's going.
So, yeah.
Victoria Hicks, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for the work that you do. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.